On May the 12th, 2022, a high-ranking Scientologist named Whitney Mills attempted to end her life. She had spent 15 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars climbing Scientology's spiritual ladder and reaching its pinnacle, OT8. But when she reached out for help, during a mental health crisis, what she got instead was misdiagnosis, spiritual manipulation, and Scientology ideology packaged as care. Today, we're diving into the heartbreaking details of Whitney Mills' final months based on public court records, investigative reporting, and a wrongful death lawsuit filed by her family. This is more than a suicide, it's a systematic failure. Whitney Mills wasn't just a name on a lawsuit. She was a daughter, a friend, and someone searching for healing. Her early life was marked by tragedy. Her father, who suffered from bipolar disorder, died by suicide when Whitney was just 18 years old. That trauma shaped her deeply. In 2007, Whitney and her then boyfriend, Jairo Andreas, began dabbling in Scientology. But it was her close friend, Laura Sales, who truly pulled her in. Laura got her into it hardcore. And from there, Whitney threw herself into the world of auditing, courses, and donations. Over 15 years, she completed countless programs and rose to the highest spiritual status, operating Thetan Level 8. Despite their growing concerns, Whitney's family never intervened. They were terrified of being disconnected, cut off completely from Whitney, as Scientology doctrine allows and encourages when someone becomes a quote-unquote suppressive person. In May 22, Whitney completed one of Scientology's most extolled processes, the Superpower Rundown. This program teaches that she could achieve infinite power, including immunity to illness and disease. But in order to even participate, a doctor, likely Dr. Minkoff, or someone from LifeWorks, had to medically clear her. 1 year earlier, in November 2021, Nurse Sue Morgan from LifeWorks signed a consent form approving Whitney for the physically demanding drills involved in the Superpower Rundown. These included unsafe procedures such as low-gravity machines, taste-testing chemically formulated flavour pellets, an endocrine chair designed to trigger adrenaline, and a body positioning station that moves the subject upside down. Despite the risks and Whitney's history of motion sickness, she was allowed to proceed, with only a caution to advance as tolerated. Dr. Minkoff, although required to sign the form, did not. By late 2021, Whitney's health was rapidly deteriorating. She had insomnia, an elevated heart rate, and an inability to eat. She visited the ER twice in December 2021 and January 2022, desperate for help. She was sent by Scientology's Director of Processing to LifeWorks and another clinic, Root Cause Medical. Root Cause was operated by chiropractors, not medical doctors. Meanwhile, LifeWorks had already been treating her for years. Since 2017, Nurse Morgan had documented ovarian cysts and swollen lymph nodes, but no one followed up properly. On February 22, 2022, after being contacted by a Scientologist from Flag Service Org, Dr. Minkoff finally saw Whitney in person. These are some of the things he diagnosed her with: mold toxicity, retrovirus, babesia, a large abdominal mass, and chronic inflammation. Instead of referring her to a psychiatrist, he prescribed ivermectin, peptides, ozone therapy, diuretics, herbs, and microcurrent therapy. These were expensive and ineffective. And Whitney? She was now in a full-blown mental health crisis. Whitney's symptoms escalated: hallucinations, debilitating headaches, anxiety, lethargy, the sensation of burning skin. She struggled to bathe or leave the house. She texted Dr. Minkoff repeatedly, begging for help with her mind. "I'm seriously experiencing some mental illness. This is my biggest symptom." Minkoff's reply: "Drugs could numb you, but you are OT. It's noise. It has no power over you. Eye of the tiger. Duplicate it. Dissolve it." On April 13th, she texted again: "I'm really struggling with that part. This is the hardest part, to be acting insane when I'm not." Dr. Minkoff did not respond. Instead, he prescribed her Selank and Semax, experimental Russian peptides banned by the FDA. No antidepressants, no psychiatric referral. Minkoff diagnosed Whitney with Lyme disease and babesia, both carried by ticks. Yet she had no tick exposure, no travel to high-risk areas, and no bullseye rash. He ran a PCR test, not FDA recommended, and ignored standard two-tiered ELISA and Western blot tests. A urine sample showed ambiguous results, with disclaimers that it was not diagnostic. Meanwhile, Whitney was treated for illnesses she didn't have, and her real crisis, mental illness, was left untreated. Even worse, Dr. Minkoff told her that she had ovarian cancer based on an MRI and PET scan. No biopsy was performed. He told her the illness was physical, not mental, but the science didn't back him up. Whitney believed she was dying, but she wasn't. She was in a psychiatric emergency. She was devastated as she thought she had cancer and was too scared to go under anaesthetic to have it operated on. To assess the quality of care Whitney Mills received, her family enlisted several medical experts, including Dr. Richard Berg, a board-certified physician in internal medicine and infectious diseases. His conclusion was damning. "It is my medical opinion that neurological Lyme disease and the benign ovarian cyst were red herrings in this case. The evidence shows that the ovarian cyst was non-cancerous and Whitney Mills more than likely did not have Lyme disease." Dr. Berg stated that Dr. Minkoff and LifeWorks failed to meet the prevailing professional standard of care. They did not conduct a differential diagnosis, did not refer Whitney to a psychiatrist, and relied on alternative testing and procedures not medically validated. The failure to identify that Whitney was in a mental health crisis directly contributed to her death. It was preventable. He further noted that the Lyme diagnosis lacked basic clinical evidence. The proper MRI would contrast and a spinal tap standard test for neurological Lyme were never performed. The one MRI that was done came back normal. And perhaps the most chilling, the text messages sent to Whitney by Dr. Minkoff, particularly when he tells her to control her anxiety and depression through Scientology, are completely inappropriate and fell below the standard of care for any physician. Whitney wasn't the first patient of Dr. Minkoff's to get caught up in his web of quackery. In 2007, the Seattle Times released an article about an investigation they'd made on a machine that was invented by a Greek scientist named Panos Pathos, called a PAP-IMI. The FDA had denied a request to sell and market it in the US. So Mr. Pathos decided to start an illegal company, importing it into the US, calling them seed germinators. In 2001, the PAP-IMI received approval to conduct a clinical study on pain. While in California, Pathos met a guy called Wallace, who he treated for his back pain with the machine. They both said the treatment was a success and a partnership was born. Neither had a medical degree, but together they dreamed of building an international healthcare empire by selling the PAP-IMI. Wallace set up a treatment clinic in Los Angeles, Bioenergy Services. It also became the national sales and marketing hub. They pitched the machine at healthcare expos in Las Vegas, Orlando, and other cities, selling them for up to $55,000 to alternative health practitioners. They also sold machines to people with no medical background, as well as to those who were desperately ill. Before long, PAP-IMI operators, under the guise of study, offered treatments across the country at 37 locations. Among the operators were at least 10 licensed healthcare professionals who'd previously been disciplined, and I bet you can guess what the name of one of those was. Yep, Dr. Minkoff. So this machine was supposedly able to cure cancer and AIDS. I just want to share a couple of stories to portray the dangers of this machine. A young mother in Los Angeles was desperate. She had a 5-month-old baby who had a rare form of cancer and was recommended chemotherapy for him. She watched as her baby struggled in pain through the first few treatments, and then she learned of the alternative therapy clinic that promised a cure without pain using machine twice a day at a Los Angeles clinic. The mother held her baby while the 260-pound machine pulsed powerful electromagnetic waves into the tumour bulging from the baby's neck. The treatments failed and the baby died. When people are very ill, they become desperate and they go to clinics like this looking for a magic cure. The employees lured people of all ages into the Los Angeles clinic and they offered gift certificates, discount packages, They even gave out free IMI treatments on weekends to people at nursing homes and at a homeless shelter. Bob Green, a former massage therapist in Idaho, bought a PAP IMI in December 2001 as a way to make money while helping people. The moment he plugged it in, sparks flew and its plug melted. He fixed it, but from then on he doubted its safety. He asked for a refund, but Walsh refused. Walsh also warned him not to complain to the FDA. "If you make up stories to tell them, I will sue you and take your house," he said. "Start saving your pennies." Green's wife, Ellen, later used the machine to try and cure her breast cancer. Despite his warnings to stay off the device, she was convinced it would save her. She died in January 2005. In April 2002, the review board found out that Walsh was improperly selling the machines to people outside the pain study. The board alerted the FDA of the violation. But weeks later, Biomed IRB discovered a more serious problem at a study site, LifeWorks Wellness Center in Clearwater, Florida. During a review of the clinic's records, the IRB learned about 2 patients whose deaths had not been promptly reported. A woman with cancer and a man with heart disease and chronic renal failure had died several days after receiving the PAP IMI treatments. The review board determined that LifeWorks president, physician David Minkoff, had failed to properly report the deaths. The delays, one of them 5 weeks, made it difficult to determine if the treatments had caused or contributed to the deaths. The review board, as required, alerted the FDA about the lapse. In a letter to the review board, Minkoff wrote that the treatments had nothing to do with their demises. During the study, Florida health officials suspended Minkoff's medical license. They determined that he'd prescribed medications inappropriately to a woman in 1995, according to the FDA and the Florida Board of Medicine. The suspension was due to the Lisa McPherson case. Minkoff had his license suspended for a year and was under probation for 2 years. So going back to Whitney's story, she was put under surveillance by Scientology. She was assigned 3 carers who stayed with her in her apartment: Nieves Lopez, Albertina Mejias, and Carissa Hart. As shown in these text messages to Nieves, it's clear that Whitney had had a conversation with Albertina about a drop in the body assist. Albertina is an OT8 auditor at FLAG. Why would she suggest this? And why did no one intervene? Neither her or the other 2 carers. There were also texts between Whitney and the chaplain's office speaking about getting an assist done, but it's unclear what type of assist. Scientology teaches that when a person dies, the thetan, the spirit, travels to a cosmic implant station where its memories are wiped before being reborn. But auditing can erase this programming. If a Scientologist is advanced enough, they can drop the body voluntarily, choosing to die and reincarnate with full control. These body-dropping assists are only ever given to those who are terminally ill. Whitney was not dying, she was suicidal. It is a possibility that the assist they were talking about was the end-of-life assist. This is an assist that is available to Scientologists and has been used by hundreds over the past few decades. It was created by Hubbard and apparently has 3 parts. The first part is to be able to exteriorize and interiorize, which means being able to go in and out of your body. Supposedly, according to Scientology, true exteriorization is to leave your body and become the size of the universe. So the idea of this is that when you pass peacefully in your sleep and you exteriorize from your body. It's supposed to assist you to pass away peacefully. The second stage of the assist is to handle rudiments, disharmony, ARC breaks. So any long-term animosities with others, anyone that you've had problems or upsets with during your life, so again, you can pass peacefully. ARC is affinity, reality, and communication. Scientologists believe that if one of these sides of the triangle is off balance, that could be what is causing upset in your life. Upsets, ARC breaks, and things like that are solved by auditing. The third part of the assist, basically Hubbard said that when you leave your body, you're discombobulated, you're all over the place, and you're not used to being out of your body. So his way to fix this is to grab a star or a nearby planet and run around it until you are focused. Even more disturbing is the reference in Scientology doctrine to something called R245. First mentioned by L. Ron Hubbard in the 1950s, R245 was described as an extremely effective technique for exteriorizing a thetan from the body via a 45 caliber gunshot. While some claim it was a joke, multiple lectures and 2 internal memos published in Scientology's magazine instructed its use on named enemies of the church. Critics, including religious scholar Dr. Stephen Kent, argue this demonstrates a dangerous level of extremism and disregard for life. Whitney's case doesn't explicitly mention R245, but in a culture where death can be framed as a means of spiritual escape, and where end-of-life decisions are guided by ideology rather than medicine, it raises profound ethical concerns. Whitney's messages became increasingly urgent and chilling as the weeks passed. Her physical pain was compounded by spiritual confusion and mental distress. A spiral intensified, not soothed by the church's teachings. On March the 12th, 2022, she emailed a Sea Org member. "It's causing me to feel like I'm dying and causing me psychosis, anxiety, panicking. I'm getting intrusive bad thoughts." By May the 1st, Whitney texted a caretaker with haunting clarity. "I literally can't take another day of this horrific horror movie I'm living." She was desperate, not just for help, but for permission to leave her body. Whitney had already made her desperate request, but instead of receiving psychiatric care or being placed under the heightened observation, her caretakers, members of the Sea Organisation, did something else. She feared punishment for even mentioning death. "I'm afraid I'll get in trouble for asking this," she wrote. The reply: "They know you're desperate." No professional stepped in, no emergency was declared, and despite her history, she was left alone. The lawsuit makes it clear these caretakers not only failed to prevent Mills' suicide, but also encouraged it. And Dr. Minkoff, he told her the illness was physical, not mental. Whitney believed she was dying, but she wasn't. She was in a psychiatric emergency. The cyst was benign, the Lyme diagnosis was unconfirmed, and the doctor she trusted gave her ideology when she needed real care. On May 12, 2022, Whitney Mills, diagnosed by her quote-unquote church doctor with phantom illnesses, misled into believing she was dying, told to trust in drills and doctrines, was left alone for several hours. For the first time in months, no one watched her. She had set herself on fire. Then she used a revolver to shoot herself in the head. Her brother found her still breathing after authorities were alerted by her friends as they hadn't heard from her in a few hours. She was rushed to Morton Plant Hospital, where she died a day and a half later. Albertina Mejias, who knew that Whitney had suicidal ideation, was not interviewed by police or investigated thoroughly. They claimed it was a language barrier problem. The DMP was not investigated either. Why, out of 3 carers, was one of them not with her? And how did she get a loaded gun? Her family have launched a 46-page lawsuit. In most Scientology lawsuits, the church hides behind a legal maze. The Church of Scientology has no legal members, no direct clients, and no financial footprint. It's a name, an umbrella. Whitney's case changes that. Her mother's lawsuit doesn't just name Dr. David Minkoff, LifeWorks, and the individual caretakers. It also names IASA, the International Association of Scientologists Administrations, as the operating arm of the unincorporated IAS membership group, which every Scientologist must join to receive services. This lawsuit peels back the layers of corporate protection and shows who's really in charge and where the liability should fall. Whitney Mills believed in a path to spiritual freedom. She gave her trust, her time, her money, her life. What she received instead was pseudoscience, false hope, and spiritual manipulation. And when she begged for someone to see her pain, they looked away. Please share Whitney's story, because silence only protects the powerful. If you could please hit the like, share, subscribe, and leave a little comment if you like. I love to read them. And if you would like to support the channel further, please follow some of the links in my description. That would help get this story out. Thank you so much for watching.